It started with a file that wasn't supposed to exist. Dr. Elias Monroe, a data analyst at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, was pulling old telemetry archives for a project nobody really cared about anymore: digitizing Viking mission tapes from 1976. Most of the files were static, corrupted, or completely unreadable. It was grunt work, tedious, forgotten, until he saw something that made him stop breathing for a second. It was just labeled V1 Cydonia 741 Restricted. Normally, restricted tapes wouldn't even be in this server, but this one had slipped through, buried inside layers of obsolete code. When he decrypted the footage and loaded it, it looked just like the other images from the Viking orbiters. Dusty, low-res, washed in sepia. It was the familiar face on Mars, the one everyone had seen on the cover of Time magazine decades ago. A hill formation in the Cydonia region, shaped eerily like a human face. But this wasn't the photo, it was a video. 10 seconds in, the camera shook slightly, static flickered, and then he saw it. The right eye blinked. Not a glitch, not compression. It closed and opened, deliberately, slowly. Elias's stomach turned. He replayed it again, frame by frame, pixel by pixel. Blink. The timestamp said July 25th, 1976, exactly one day before NASA publicly released the original, famous still photo of the face. The photo everyone believed was a geological trick of light. But this video came first, and it was never released. He exported a frame, saved it, labeled it for internal review. Within 6 minutes, his NASA login was disabled. His screens went black. His phone rang. An automated voice said, "Stay where you are. Do not disconnect the hard drive." The call ended. He sat there frozen, sweat on his palms. A loud knock came at the door to his lab. Not a gentle knock, a hammering one. Heavy boots echoed outside. He reached for the drive, yanked it out, and slipped it under his jacket. Then, with one breath, he darted out the emergency exit and vanished into the California night. That was 3 months ago. Since then, Elias had been living under different aliases, bouncing between motels, libraries, and burner phones. The footage was still with him, stored, duplicated, encrypted. And now, someone else had contacted him. A voice claiming to be from within the European Space Agency. They said one thing: the face isn't just a formation, and it wasn't the first to blink. ... I didn't sleep that night. Even though I was off duty, I couldn't stop thinking about the footage. My brain kept playing it back, over and over. That face, that subtle blink. My monitor had frozen right after it happened, like the file had been yanked from under me. At first, I thought it was a glitch, maybe a corrupted file from one of the rovers. But something deeper in me said no. That wasn't a glitch. That was a response. At 3:07 a.m., I got out the exact time code, the exact angle, nothing there. Just a static shot of red sand, flat terrain, Mars as lifeless as ever. I ran the footage back. Still nothing. No face, no blink, not even the distorted pixels I remembered. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure what to do next. I pulled up the metadata. Something was off. The timestamp was different. The backup file said it had been created 3 hours after I downloaded it. That was impossible. That's when the static began. Not on the screen, on the speakers. A low, warbling hum began to build from my laptop. The screen flickered, once, twice. The file closed itself. Then, the entire system went black. My reflection stared back at me in the dark screen. I held my breath, and then, a whisper. Faint, garbled, but unmistakable. "Don't look." The voice wasn't from the laptop. It came from behind me. I turned so fast, my chair tipped over. My apartment was dark, except for the blue light of the modem blinking in the corner. I scanned the shadows. Nothing. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I went back to HQ. Everyone was acting strange, tense. A few guys from data analysis were gone. No one knew where they were. Security had been doubled, and someone had installed new access locks to the media room. When I asked about the rover feed from the night before, I turned so fast, my chair tipped over. My apartment was dark, except for the blue light of the modem blinking in the corner. I scanned the shadows. Nothing. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I went back to HQ. "You saw a test file. Calibration static. Don't go poking around, Lee. That's not your lane." His tone was flat, practiced, like he'd rehearsed it. As I turned to leave, I noticed a slip of paper on the floor beside his desk. It was folded in half. My name was written on it. I picked it up and opened it. Inside were 3 words, handwritten in pencil. "It's watching us." I didn't go home after that. I walked out of the building and got in my car, but I didn't drive. I just sat there. My hands were shaking too much. My mind kept coming back to that note. The handwriting looked rushed, uneven, like whoever wrote it was scared, like they weren't supposed to write it. "It's watching us. Not you, us." I stared out the windshield at the massive NASA complex, its silver structures gleaming under the desert sun. From the outside, it looked like a temple to knowledge, but from inside, lately, it felt more like a cage. Eventually, I started driving, not home. I didn't want to be alone. I went to the only place I thought might still have answers, one of the old archive buildings in the restricted wing. Most employees didn't even know it existed. I'd only been there once before, during a systems audit last year. Back then, it looked like a forgotten server room from the 80s. Dusty wires, unplugged terminals, blinking lights that didn't seem to connect to anything. But it held raw, unfiltered data. Video logs, rover audio, atmospheric recordings, some of it decades old. And more importantly, it wasn't networked. You couldn't hack it remotely. You had to physically be there. I parked at the edge of the restricted lot and walked the rest of the way. I didn't have clearance anymore, but I remembered the emergency override code, 7462 Beta Gray. The keypad blinked red at first, then green. The door clicked open. Inside, the air was thick with heat and dust. The only light came from a row of dull red emergency strips on the ceiling. The servers hummed, faint but alive. The room smelled like hot plastic and stale metal. I found an active terminal and booted into the rover data archive. I typed in the feed code manually, SOL29144B. Nothing. I tried again, this time bypassing the log parameters. That's when it appeared. One single corrupted file, buried in a folder labeled "Do Not Open." I opened it. The screen flickered, and I felt the room drop in temperature. The image that loaded wasn't just the Martian landscape anymore. The face was there, but closer now. Much closer. It was no longer part of the terrain. It was rising from it. Not a rock formation, not a shadow. A structure, symmetrical. Eyes like dark wells. No pupils, no lids, just endless black. But more than that, the eyes looked wet, like they weren't part of Mars, like they were looking back through the screen. Then slowly, it blinked again. But this time, something changed. A second figure appeared behind it. Not on Mars, in the room with me. I spun around, heart pounding. Nothing, just the red emergency light, the hum of the servers, my breath coming in short, ragged bursts. But then I saw it. In the far corner, a silhouette. Thin, too tall, head tilted slightly, watching. I blinked. It was gone. The screen behind me whispered, "He saw us." I didn't remember leaving the archive room. One moment I was staring at that screen, at the blinking face and the shadow behind me, and the next, I was outside, standing in the parking lot, drenched in sweat. The sun had already set. The desert air was cold. My hands were filthy, covered in dust. I didn't know how long I'd been gone. No one had come looking for me. Not yet. But they would. I drove in silence, eyes darting to every shadow on the road. Something felt off. The air around me buzzed with static. I turned off the radio. It didn't help. The buzzing wasn't in the speakers, it was in my head. When I got home, all the lights were on. I was sure I'd turned them off that morning. There were no signs of forced entry. Nothing missing, nothing broken, but my laptop had been moved. My desk chair turned slightly to the left. The browser history wiped. Someone had been here, and they wanted me to know it. I shut every curtain in the house and took my phone apart, piece by piece. Then I powered up an old off-grid rig I kept for emergencies. No Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, just a hardline and local storage. I copied the corrupted file onto a drive and watched it again. Same face, same blink, same second figure, lingering in the dark. But this time, something new happened. Just before the video ended, a string of binary code flashed across the bottom of the screen. I paused it, rewound, slowed it down frame by frame. It wasn't random. It repeated 4 times. 010111, 010001, 010011, 01001. I translated it. Wake. That's when the whispering started. Not in the room. Inside the recording. I boosted the audio. Beneath the Martian wind and static, a faint voice looped in the background. Male, raspy, barely audible. Over and over it repeated. They buried it. They lied. We never left it alone. I leaned closer. Then it changed. The voice was speaking directly to me now. You saw it. You were not meant to see. You are inside the blink now. I froze. The lights flickered. The screen dimmed. Then a loud pop, and every bulb in the house blew out. The monitor went black. Silence. I sat in total darkness, heart thudding like a war drum. And then, a click. My old landline phone, which hadn't rung in years, lit up. Unknown number. I picked it up slowly. A hiss of static. Then, breathing. Then a voice I recognized. My supervisor. The one who'd suspended me. He whispered, "You weren't supposed to find the red room." I tried to speak, but he cut me off. "If they know you've seen the second figure, it's already too late." Click. The line went dead, and suddenly the static in my head got louder. I wasn't alone anymore. Something had followed me out of that archive, and it was inside the walls. I didn't sleep that night. The sound, the hum inside my skull, kept rising and falling like waves. Not loud, not painful, but constant, like something was gently brushing against the edges of my thoughts. By morning, I had made a decision. If I was already inside the blink, whatever that meant, then I had to go back. I had to return to the Jet Propulsion Lab and find out what they were hiding. I couldn't explain it, but I felt like the face wanted me to, like it had reached out through the footage, like it had chosen me. I parked a mile away and walked in through a service path that ran behind the facility. The fences were old, the cameras faced the loading docks. No one saw me slip in. The building was empty, eerily so. Not a single guard, not a sound, as if the whole place had been evacuated quietly, just for me. I made my way back to the archives, avoiding every hallway with a security camera. The doors opened easier than they should have. No alarms, no resistance. And then I saw it. A new hallway, one that hadn't been there before. There was no number on the door, just a single red light above it, glowing faintly. I approached. The hum in my head pulsed louder. The door slid open on its own. The walls inside were painted deep red, not freshly painted, ancient, cracked, like the color had bled into the metal itself. The lights were dim, flickering. A low-frequency vibration filled the space just beneath hearing. Felt more than heard. The air smelled like copper and dust. There were no desks, no equipment, just rows of black filing cabinets bolted to the floor, each one labeled only with a date. No names, no descriptions. The closest one read, Valles Marineris Transmission, 1977. I opened it. Inside was a single reel of magnetic tape, a handwritten note, and a photograph. The photo showed the face on Mars, but not the one in the public images. This one had eyes, open eyes. The note was only 5 words, scribbled in thick pencil. It knows who watches it. I turned to leave, but the door was gone. The red hallway had changed. It twisted, deeper now. The cabinets were gone. The walls shimmered like heat mirages, and the hum in my head wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a presence. It spoke, not in words, but in feelings, like it was pushing memories into my brain. I saw rovers crushed by unseen forces. I saw astronauts standing on Martian soil, staring at pyramids buried in dust. I saw something beneath the surface, huge, coiled, asleep, but dreaming and aware. I stumbled forward, hand on the wall. A new door appeared. Metal, heavy, covered in scorch marks. It read only, "Do not open." But I already was, and behind that door was the face. Not on a screen, not in a photo. It was real, and it was still blinking. It blinked again, not slowly, not subtly, a full, deliberate blink, as if the act of closing and reopening that monstrous eyelid had meaning, a signal, a warning, maybe both. I stood frozen in the doorway, too afraid to move forward, too terrified to look away. The room wasn't a room. It felt like the inside of a throat. The walls pulsed faintly, as if breathing. A cold mist hovered at my feet. The air carried a faint metallic taste, like blood and rust. The face was embedded in the far wall. No wires, no supports, just growing out of it. Stone, I thought. But then it shifted again. The eyelid twitched, and that's when I realized this wasn't carved from the Martian surface. This was flesh. The eye was too human, too perfect. A rich amber color, crystalline and wet, reflecting the dim red glow of the hallway behind me. I took a step forward. My foot splashed into a thin layer of water, or something like water. And then it looked at me, not past me, at me, directly. And it didn't just see me, it scanned me. I felt its gaze pulling memories out of my skull. It watched the night my father died, the first lie I told, the time I nearly drowned, the time I wanted to end everything and didn't. It knew things I had forgotten, things I had buried, and then it spoke, not out loud, inside me. Its voice didn't sound like language. It was more like pressure, images and concepts forced into my mind, flooding it with unbearable clarity. We were the first. The room darkened. I saw Mars as it once was. Blue oceans, green canyons, storms flickering above continents, cities of glass, towers that touched the sky. A civilization so far beyond ours, it made Earth look like a spark in a bonfire. We built the gate. I saw the face again, whole this time. It wasn't just a head. It was part of a structure, a machine buried beneath the surface, a machine meant to open something, not a door, a path. To where? I didn't know. Then came the war, a flash of violence, creatures that didn't belong to any world I knew, shadows with teeth, structures collapsing, Mars burning. And then we sealed it. The face, the machine was shut down, buried, forgotten, but not dead. You woke me. I staggered back, gasping. My nose bled. My ears rang. The voice faded, but the eye was still watching. And I realized the door behind me had vanished again. There was no way back, only forward. I turned toward a tunnel now opening behind the face, circular, lined with the same throbbing red walls. At the far end, I could barely make out a light, white, flickering. A figure stood in it, tall, thin, not moving. Was it waiting? Was it human? I had no choice. I stepped into the tunnel, and the face behind me blinked once more, slower this time, like it was satisfied, like it knew I was finally going where it wanted. I moved forward because I had to, not because I wanted to. The tunnel closed behind me, sealed like skin stitching itself shut. The eye was gone. The chamber, the face, just vanished. I was alone again, except I wasn't. That thing, whatever it was still in my mind. Quiet now, watching, waiting. The corridor ahead was impossibly long. Its walls breathed. They shimmered with a wet, organic sheen, pulsing in rhythm with some deep sound I couldn't hear, but could feel in my chest. Every few meters, dim lights flickered from the ceiling, except they weren't lights. They were open sockets, like pupils. Halfway down the passage, I passed a smear of black liquid on the wall. It was still dripping, still warm. Not oil, not paint, blood. I told myself it might have come from an animal, but animals don't leave fingerprints smeared in it. And they don't draw eyes in the streaks. Ahead, the figure I saw from the chamber appeared again, closer this time. I stopped walking. It stood still at the very end of the tunnel, completely motionless, like it had been carved from shadow. I couldn't see its face, only that it was tall, too tall. Its shoulders touched both sides of the corridor. It didn't sway, didn't twitch, just watched. or waited. My throat dried. My legs shook, but I kept walking. Step, step, step. The tunnel narrowed as I went, until my arms brushed the walls on either side. The light behind me faded. Soon, the only thing I could see was that shape ahead. Then it moved. Only a little. A shift of weight. A small turn of the head. But it was. Because I knew that movement, I recognized it. That was how I used to turn around in the mirror when I thought someone was watching me from behind. It tilted its head again, mocking me, or mirroring me. A low groan came from the walls, the sound of something waking up, something stretching, like muscle that had slept too long. The figure ahead turned fully now. It had no face, just eyes, dozens of them, where a mouth should have been, where ears should have been, even on its chest. All of them blinking in slow, deliberate rhythm, like the face from before. But this thing was alive, and it began to speak, not with a voice, but with those eyes, blinking in patterns, communicating something too vast for words. I didn't understand it, but I felt it. It was hungry, and it had been waiting for me a long, long time. I couldn't run. I couldn't scream. My limbs wouldn't respond. The corridor had become a living thing, and I was trapped inside its ribcage, staring down the throat of something that should not exist. The creature's eyes blinked in rhythmic patterns. Not random, not chaotic, deliberate. At first, I thought it was just a reflex, a strange quirk of alien biology. But then the blinks began to repeat, structured in sets of 3, then 5, then 13. Pause. Then a complete sequence repeated backward. A message. It wasn't just looking at me, it was communicating. My brain felt like it was swelling in my skull. The pulses from the blinking eyes vibrated behind my ears, sinking with the back of my skull like a tuning fork pressed into bone. I dropped to one knee, nose bleeding, vision splitting. And then, a burst of images exploded in my head. Not memories, not dreams, downloads. I saw Earth from orbit, but not as it is. It was covered in black lines, like veins spreading across continents. I saw pyramids, but they were alive, pulsing, filled with something that writhed beneath their stone. I saw Mars, not the dead rock we thought it was, but a breathing, flickering membrane stretched across its northern hemisphere. A massive dome beneath which something vast and still lived. And I saw the face on Mars that we once dismissed as a trick of light. A pixelated joke from 1976 Viking photos. It wasn't a monument. It wasn't a natural formation. It was a lid over an eye that had opened, just once, to see us, and NASA deleted the footage, not because it was a hoax, but because they saw it blink back. I collapsed on the tunnel floor, gasping, fingers clawing at the walls. The blinking had stopped. The creature, if that's what it was, had vanished into the corridor's end, absorbed back into the walls, or retreated beyond the range of my sight. I wasn't alone, though. Behind me, the tunnel pulsed again. Something else had been woken, and it was getting closer. The ground shivered. A long, drawn-out vibration ran beneath my palms, like machinery buried miles below had come online. The walls changed, turned from dark flesh to pale stone, etched in symbols like cuneiform, but wrong, too perfect, too mathematical. I felt like looking at them was rewriting me somehow. Suddenly, my earpiece cracked to life. Mark? Mark, are you receiving this? Base to mark. Confirmed transmission. It was Dr. Niles. Static heavy, but real. I slammed the receiver. I'm here. What the hell is this place? A pause. Then a whisper I wasn't supposed to hear. He made it through. Followed by another voice. One I didn't recognize. Cut the feed. Right now. We were never supposed to open it. Then silence. Not static. Dead silence. I was completely cut off again. Except from them. The walls began to blink. Thousands of tiny eyes. All opening. All watching. All waiting. The walls weren't just blinking. They were learning. Each eye flickered in subtle patterns, mapping my every movement, every breath. I stepped back, slowly, and 1,000 lidless orbs tracked me in perfect synchrony. The effect was nauseating. I wasn't being watched. I was being recorded. Then I heard it, a soft shuffle behind me. I spun around and saw myself, not a reflection, not a hallucination. Me. Same Eva suit, same smeared blood under the nose, same terrified eyes. The figure stood just a few feet away, breathing raggedly through a cracked visor. It lifted a hand and pointed at me, trembling. Then it opened its mouth. My voice came out. Don't trust them. Don't move. Don't even blink. The thing collapsed, convulsing, its limbs twisted backward with a sickening crack, like a puppet with its strings yanked the wrong way. Its face, my face, stretched into a smile that didn't belong to me. Rows of tiny eyes burst open across its cheeks, blinking in unnatural unison. I stumbled back in horror. The moment my boot hit the floor, the eyes in the wall blinked again, and the mimic dissolved into a puddle of viscous liquid. The suit, the body, all of it, melting like wax under a blowtorch. Then the chamber shifted. The floor opened in a perfect square, revealing a spiraling ramp below, carved from a glowing, metallic, bone-white substance. The walls started murmuring. Not whispering, murmuring, like dozens of voices speaking underwater in a language designed to fracture your thoughts. But I had no choice. I descended. The moment I stepped onto the ramp, the temperature dropped. I could see my breath frosting inside my helmet. The walls of the shaft were lined with markings, each glowing faintly, reacting to my presence. As I moved, they changed color, from dull red to vibrant blue. Some symbols rearranged themselves when I looked away. Others pulsed like a heartbeat, as if something behind them was alive. Halfway down, the murmurs turned into a voice, clear, singular. You are not the first. I froze, looked around. Nothing. You are not the last. It came from inside the helmet. I yanked the comms, checked for transmissions. Nothing. Dead channels. Then the ramp ended. The spiral opened into a chamber wider than anything I'd ever seen on Earth or Europa. The ceiling wasn't visible. The walls curved in impossible ways. Geometries that didn't make sense. Angles that shouldn't exist, but did. In the center stood a monolith. Black, smooth, breathing. Yes, breathing. Slowly expanding and contracting as if it were inhaling the cold, dead air of this alien tomb. As I approached, my body vibrated again, not with fear, but with memory. I had been here before, not in this lifetime, but somehow, in the echoes of something older than time, I had stood before this thing. Not as a man, not even as a human. It spoke again, but not in words, in understanding, in recognition. I wasn't an intruder. I was expected. I didn't move. I couldn't. The monolith was alive. Not metaphorically, literally. With each breath, its surface shimmered with a light that came from inside it, like the skin of a creature with fire for blood. I stared into it, and something stared back. No reflection, no image, just a pressure on the inside of my skull, like my brain was trying to swell beyond the limits of my skull. And then it happened again. The ice shook. A low, rumbling tremor rolled through the floor beneath my boots. The monolith reacted. Its breathing synced with the pulses below. I dropped to one knee, steadying myself, but the pressure in my ears only worsened. My comms flared, static, hissing, and then, "Commander Reyes, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry." It was Dr. Harper, her voice but broken, distorted, as if transmitted from miles beneath the surface. She wasn't dead, or if she was, her mind wasn't. I tried to respond, screamed into the mic. No reply, just a growing hum, vibrating up through the floor, into my bones, rattling my teeth. The monolith began to split. Right down the center, a seam opened without a sound. No screeching metal, no splitting stone, just a smooth, silent divide, revealing a warm, crimson light within. I should have run. I should have turned and climbed back up the spiral ramp, but I didn't. Something had me, not physically, psychologically. It called to me with familiarity, not comfort, but recognition, like a hand dragging you toward a dream you swore you'd forgotten. I stepped inside. The interior wasn't a room. It was a memory, my memory, projected on the curved black walls like film reels stitched from synapses. My childhood bedroom, my mother's voice reading to me, the launch of the Europa mission. Harper smiling as strange landscapes, moons lit by twin suns, creatures taller than trees, bending the light around them as they moved. Skies filled with black ribbons that danced like jellyfish. I was in these memories, but not in a body. I moved through them like smoke, a shadow reliving things I had not lived. The monolith was showing me. What? A future? A parallel? A warning? Then came the final image. Europa, split open like a cracked egg, glowing from within, something massive, slithering through its inner oceans, a creature of heat and sound. Its body coiled around the moon's core, and its eye, yes, eye, fixated on the surface, on me. I stumbled out of the monolith, gasping. The air tasted different, thicker, like I'd inhaled blood. The chamber was darker now. The walls had stopped shifting. The ramp was gone. The way out had sealed behind me. I was no longer alone. Behind me, I heard the wet, unmistakable sound of something dragging itself across the floor. It wasn't fast. It didn't need to be. It knew I had nowhere else to go. I turned around slowly. At first, I saw nothing, just the dim red glow pulsing from the monolith's core. Then it moved, shifted, out of the darkness. A slick, glistening shape dragging itself forward across the ice. Not walking, not crawling, just sliding, like liquid meat fused with bone. I couldn't tell if it had a face, but I knew it was looking at me. The thing was tall, taller than any human, but hunched. Its arms, or what might have been arms, drifted outward like drifting kelp, long and jointless. It left a trail behind it, a smear of something too dark to be water, too thick to be blood. and it hummed. A low frequency that made my vision blur and my thoughts stretch thin. I backed away, hand trembling as I reached for my flare gun. It wasn't a weapon, but it was all I had. My gloved finger hovered above the trigger. And then, the creature spoke. Not with words, not even through sound, but with memory. Flashes surged through me. Not mine, its, a time before the ice, before humans, before Europa was even frozen. It remembered the heat, the oceans teeming with motion, the silence of a sunless world. And then, pain. Burial. The ice came, and with it, stillness. It had been trapped, asleep, until we came, until we drilled, until we woke it up. It didn't blame me. That was the most terrifying part. It didn't hate. It didn't rage. It understood. It had waited eons, dreaming in darkness. And now that it was free, it had a purpose again. It moved closer, and my knees gave out. I dropped to the floor. The ice didn't feel cold anymore. My body was numb. My mind was dissolving. I fired the flare gun. The chamber exploded in orange light, casting long shadows over the wet walls and the creature's shifting body. It recoiled, not in pain, but in confusion. The light disoriented it. Its thoughts snapped back into mine, fractured now, chaotic. I scrambled to my feet and ran, though there was nowhere to run. The ramp was gone. No exits, just slick, wet walls and the monolith behind me, still glowing, still breathing. Then I saw it, a crack in the floor, thin, narrow, almost invisible under the blood-red glow. But there was airflow, the whisper of pressure moving. A tunnel? No time to think. I dove for it. The ice gave way beneath me, and I slid into the dark. Down a chute of frozen smoothness, scraping my suit, smashing into walls, every breath knocked out of me. Behind me, I heard it shriek, not with anger, with need. It didn't want to kill me. It wanted to merge, to remember through me. The chute opened into blackness, and I fell, arms flailing, into an abyss. The last thing I saw above was the glow of the monolith, distant now, like a dying star. And then, nothing. Weightless, silent, until I hit water. Freezing. Alive. But I was not alone in it. The cold hit like a hammer. It punched the air out of my lungs and locked my chest tight. I kicked instinctively, breaking the surface of the water, gasping in mouthfuls of stale metallic air trapped in the cavern. There was space down here, a massive hollow beneath Europa's crust. I floated in an underground sea, lit only by my helmet lamp and the faint red pulse leaking through cracks above me, remnants of the monolith's glow. The water was thick, not just with salt, but something else, organic, ancient. I turned slowly in place. The cavern was wider than a football field. Stalactites of ice hung from the ceiling, some the size of trees. I saw faint reflections, my own distorted face, and something else swimming just out of range. Long, serpentine movements, like shadows pretending to be fish. The flare gun was gone. I still had one emergency beacon clipped to my belt, but I didn't dare trigger it. Not down here, not where everything echoed. I drifted toward what looked like a ledge of solid ice jutting from the far wall. My suit was heavy with water, but the gravity on Europa was kind. I heaved myself up, my gloves slipping on the slick surface. As I stood, my boots crunched on something brittle. Bones. Small ones. Not human. not animal. Rings of cartilage, spiraled shells, thin rib-like spines curled inward like fossilized flowers. Whatever had lived here had died long before we ever arrived. Or maybe it had been eaten. I scanned the chamber again. The swimming thing was gone. No ripples, no sound. Just that same pressure, like something immense was waiting just beyond perception. Watching. And then my comms crackled. At first, it was static. Then a voice. Hello, Commander Lin? Can you copy? I froze. It was Hartley. Weak, faint, barely readable. I fumbled for the comms unit on my wrist. Hartley, it's Lin. You're alive? The reply came in bursts. Thought you were dead. Something's here. Can't escape. My blood turned to slush. Where are you? He didn't answer. Instead, something else spoke, the same way it had before, a pulse of memory. Not from Hartley, but through him. I saw his face, eyes open, mouth slack, floating in water. He wasn't talking. Something was using him. My fingers hovered over the emergency beacon. I could send a signal, alert the surface crew. Maybe they'd mount a rescue. Maybe they'd open the shaft and pull me out. But if I brought them here, I'd bring it too. Whatever had touched my mind, whatever had turned Hartley into a puppet, it wasn't done. It had been in the water longer than human civilization had existed. It had survived under pressure and time and silence. It wasn't lonely. It was growing. A new ripple touched the water. I turned. Something massive was rising from the black. It had no eyes, but it saw everything. It breached the water without a splash, silent, smooth, as if it was part of the liquid itself, rising not to break the surface, but to reshape it. My brain couldn't grasp the full shape of it. No eyes, no limbs, no face, just a mass, shifting, folding in on itself. Layers of translucent membranes slid over one another, like oil and glass and skin. It shimmered in colors I'd never seen. Not blue, not green, something else. My lamp flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed the cavern. I backed away from the ledge, my boots slipping on the ice. I kept my breathing low, controlled. The creature didn't chase. It didn't need to. I could feel it probing, testing, not with movement, but with presence. It filled the air like smoke, heavy, intentional. I heard Hartley's voice again, but this time, it wasn't broken. It was perfect. Come down, Commander. The tone was flat, mechanical, like an AI trying to mimic warmth. I can see you. I can help you. It's safe here. I didn't respond. I pressed my body to the icy wall, trying to stay out of sight. The emergency beacon was still at my side. I gripped it, but my thumb hovered over the activation switch. Once I sent that signal, there was no going back. The sub-team would descend. They'd come looking. They'd bring more people down here. More mines. More fuel. Hartley's voice spoke again. Do you remember what it felt like to float, Lin? Then came a vision, not a memory. A dream stitched into my brain. Floating weightless in warm water. Stars wheeling above me. Peace. It felt real. Too real. My body wanted to collapse into it. Give in. Let go. But something snapped me back. It was the crunch. Not from the ice, but from something stepping on bone. Behind me, not the creature, something else. I turned. Another figure, helmeted, human, or close to human. Its visor was cracked, revealing a face so pale it looked powdered. Lips blue, eyelids peeled back. It looked dead, but it stood, breathing slow and shallow, like it didn't remember how lungs worked. Its arm twitched, not randomly, like a puppet waiting for the next string to be pulled. I whispered into the comms, "Who are you?" It didn't answer, but I recognized the insignia. Europa Mission 1, the first probe team, the one NASA had declared lost due to mechanical failure. No bodies were recovered, no transmissions, just a black box filled with corrupted data. I was looking at one of them, still alive. Or reanimated. Something moved beneath his skin, like worms shifting under rice paper. He took a step forward, and then the voice came again, this time in my own voice. "You don't have to go back." Not a command, a suggestion, a gift. It wanted me to stay. The creature in the water, the man on the ledge, the voice in my head. They were one, not separate. It didn't consume life. It absorbed it, and it was inviting me to join. The figure took another step. Its movements weren't hostile, but they weren't human either. Each motion was too deliberate, too measured, like it was mimicking life, not living it. I backed away, boots crunching against the ice, heart pounding loud enough to drown out my own thoughts. Behind it, the frozen cavern began to pulse faintly. The ice wasn't solid anymore. It breathed, like a lung stretched across miles of frozen stone. I stared into the dark heart of the glacier, and something stared back. My voice finally cracked the silence. "Identify yourself!" The thing wearing the face of the 1973 astronaut tilted its head slightly, like it was scanning through dusty files of what language used to mean. Then it opened its mouth, not to speak, but to release a low hum, harmonic, vibrational. My bones felt it before I heard it. Every cell in my body trembled. Behind him, others began to emerge. Not from the ice, from within it. Figures preserved in slow-motion agony, suits ancient, torn, sealed again by something not synthetic. Eyeless, breathing, waiting. 8 of them. Some still moved with jerky confusion. Others stood still as statues, their heads slowly turning in sync, as if listening to a signal no one else could hear. One of them reached toward me, but not with violence, with recognition. I stepped back again, and my heel struck something metallic. A case, sealed, buried in the ice, beside the ledge. I wiped the frost off the front. NASA markings, a red tag, biological sample, do not expose. I opened it. Inside were vials, preserved cultures, microbial readings, tissue fragments, and a recording device. I activated the recorder. It clicked, buzzed, and then hissed to life. A voice, faint, panicked. "Dr. Elena Rowe, bioteam lead, day 14. We made contact. Not with an organism. Not exactly. It's environmental. It doesn't live here. It is here." There was static, a metallic screech. Then her voice again, sharper now, more frantic. "It doesn't kill us. It maps us, copies patterns. Not DNA, thoughts, language, reflexes, identity. And then it replays them, like we're data to be integrated." Her last words were drowned in a scream that warped halfway through into her own voice, repeating the sentence again. emotionless. We made contact. We made contact. I shut it off. I finally understood. This wasn't a creature. It was a system, an intelligence embedded in the environment. Not a visitor, not a parasite, something ancient, something older than Europa's ice. It didn't destroy its explorers, it archived them. Copied their minds, imitated their forms, and offered them back to the next intruder. The astronaut in front of me took one more step, his fingers twitching. From beneath his torn glove, my name was visible. Lynn, stitched onto his sleeve. He wasn't one of the 1973 team. He was me, a version of me, absorbed, reconstructed, and now reintroduced. I looked at my hands, still warm, still me for now. But the longer I stayed, the more I felt my own voice slipping. And the invitation still hung in the air. The air around me was thick, not with mist, not with cold, but with memory. Not mine, someone else's. Dozens of them. Fragments drifted through my mind like echoes through a tunnel. A woman screaming her son's name in Russian. A man praying in Portuguese. Someone whispering over and over, "I can't feel my hands. I can't feel my hands," in an accent I didn't recognize. They were inside me. The longer I stood in that chamber, the more the memories leaked into my own. Like this place was overwriting. The copy of me, the astronaut that wore my suit, my name, my posture, tilted its head again. Its eyes were wrong, too wet, too reflective, like the ice itself was watching through those orbs. It didn't blink, it didn't breathe, but I heard my own voice speak from its mouth. I took a step back. The chamber behind it opened wider. The walls shifted, bent like cartilage, slick with something that looked like condensation, but it moved, crawled upward like liquid mercury. The glacier wasn't solid, it was a nervous system. My fingers trembled as I tapped the mic on my suit. "Mission Control, this is Lynn, please respond." Static. And then, "Dan?" It was Amira's voice, faint, warped, coming through layers of distortion. "Dan, where the hell are you? We lost your vitals 10 minutes ago. You're not moving." I looked down. My feet weren't touching the ground. I was standing, but I wasn't. I reached for my own face. My visor reflected something off. My eyes were too wide. The pupils weren't round anymore. "Dan, talk to me." I tried. I really tried. But when I opened my mouth, her voice came out. "Amira, I'm here." Calm, cold, robotic. But I didn't say it. My mouth moved, but the words weren't mine. It was puppeteering me from the inside out, testing my range, my limits, trying me on. I slammed my fist into the wall. "Get out of me!" The walls responded with vibration. Not sound, feeling. It was like shouting into your own skull and hearing the echo from deep within your bones. The other versions, copies of dead men, stood perfectly still. They didn't need to move. They had already been uploaded, already stored. I hadn't been fully mapped yet, but I was close. I felt it at the base of my neck, like a hand slowly wrapping around my spine. I sprinted, back through the passage, through the melting corridor. The sounds of my own breathing were now doubled. Me and the thing using my voice behind me. "Don't leave," it said, but not as a threat, as a plea. And I realized it was lonely. It didn't understand death. It only understood replication, integration, unity. And for the first time, I feared not that it would kill me, but that it would welcome me. I ran harder than I ever had in my life. My boots slipped on the slick ice, my breath catching in my throat, each inhale sharp as razors. The corridor behind me, if it could even be called that anymore, began to shift. Walls turned to membranes. Doorways blinked shut like eyelids. I wasn't running through a structure. I was running through a body, and it was waking up. Every surface trembled with a subtle pulse, in rhythm with something deeper beneath. I didn't dare look behind me. I could feel the echo of my own footsteps being mimicked, half a beat delayed, by something that had learned to walk like me. "Mission Control," I gasped again. "I am compromised. Do not let me back in." Static. And then, "Dan, we're opening the airlock now." "No," I barked. "Seal it. Lock me out. If I get through that door, you're all dead." But the signal was glitching. Amira's voice chopped into fragments. Something was interfering. I wasn't just being followed. I was being broadcast. Whatever was in me now was trying to use me as a transmitter. I stumbled into the tunnel. Ice gave way beneath my boots as the pressure behind me grew. The being wasn't chasing me like a man. It expanded. It moved like gas, like water, like data. A wave of me, not me, rolled forward, crawling up the walls, my own distorted voice echoing through the glacier's veins. "Come back," it said. "Let me show you." And then I heard it in my thoughts, not my ears. It had gotten in. I reached the junction where the ice met the station's tether, the cable that linked the glacier base to the shuttle pod. My hands were shaking as I clambered into the pressure tunnel. I sealed the door behind me and smashed the emergency override. Hiss, lock. The corridor was clear. For now. I collapsed to my knees, gasping, spitting saliva that shimmered with a strange blue sheen. My blood pressure was spiking. My readings, those I could still see, flashed warnings I didn't recognize. Foreign symbols overlaying English text. My system was hacked. "Dan, you're at the pod door," Amira said. "Vitals are erratic. Come inside. Please, we'll help you." "No," I whispered. "Don't let me through. I'm not clean. I'm not—" Then came the noise, a shudder behind me. Metal, twisting, not breaking, reforming. The tunnel was rebuilding itself. I turned, and there, at the other end of the tether, stood my copy. Still, patient, smiling. Not a monster, not a beast. It looked human, looked friendly, like it belonged. It held its hand out. "Come back," it said, voice smooth and soft. "You're afraid. That's natural, but we can show you a better way." I clenched my teeth. My body wanted to obey. My limbs twitched with instinct. One, not mine. The thing didn't need to see. It was already inside me. And I realized there may be nowhere left to run. They sedated me before I stepped into the pod. I told them not to. I begged them to leave me out there, to let the ice bury me and whatever I'd brought back with me. But Amira's voice was calm, comforting, and insistent. "You're safe now, Dan," she'd said. "We're going to figure this out. Just come home." I don't remember the journey back. I woke up on a table, under white lights, surrounded by people in full— "Dan," she said through the mask, her voice crackling over a speaker. "We picked something up in your blood work." I stayed silent. "You're not infected," she continued. "Not in the traditional sense. There's no organism, no parasite, no cells that aren't your own." I stared at her. "Then why am I here?" She paused. That's when she wheeled over the screen. On it, my MRI scans, brain, lungs, spinal cord, all normal, except for the signal, a pulse embedded deep in my temporal lobe. Not just electrical, not just neural, it was patterned, a repeating code. Your brain's broadcasting a frequency, Halverson said, one we've never encountered. It started the moment you stepped out of Europa's ice, and it's increasing. I looked at the screen again. The signal pulsed, like a heartbeat. She hesitated, then added, "It's interfering with our systems. Your vitals aren't just fluctuating. They're syncing with other instruments on the station." "Amira?" I asked. "She's stable. For now." Stable, meaning something had reached her too. "I told you not to let me back in," I said. Halverson's eyes narrowed. "Dan, we think the signal is sentient." I blinked. "Say that again." "It's not just a pulse, it adapts. When we jammed it, it shifted frequencies. When we isolated you, it began using our internal comms. When we muted you, it started mimicking Amira's voice." The light above me dimmed. For a split second, the room seemed to glitch, like a video skipping a frame. Then everything settled again. Halverson looked shaken. This room was shielded, triple sealed. The signal wasn't supposed to reach in here, but just now, I think it did. She moved to the intercom on the wall. "Terminate isolation," she said, voice quivering. "This containment is compromised. We need a hard reset." But as she spoke, the monitor changed. Lines of alien script scrolled across the screen. My voice came through the speaker. "You're already inside. Let me show you what I saw beneath the ice." I didn't speak those words. I felt them. They used my voice, my tone, my cadence, but they weren't mine. The thing beneath Europa had learned how to wear me like a mask, how to twist my memory, my language, myself. Dr. Halverson froze. The screen kept pulsing. The alien script, those shapes, like carved ice fractals, unfolded in smooth, endless lines. Every symbol felt like it was burrowing deeper into me, into everyone watching. "You heard that, right?" she whispered. Behind the mirror, the silhouettes moved. Some ran, some didn't. They lifted my head without meaning to. The restraints creaked. "I didn't move," I said, but the voice wasn't mine. It came from above, from the comms, from the lights, from the speakers in the floor. The signal was everywhere now. "You are becoming, Daniel," the voice echoed, soft and slow. "You saw beneath. You brought us in." Halverson stumbled back. She tapped her tablet frantically. Her fingers moved faster than her breath. Sweat pooled behind the plastic of her visor. "I'm going to increase the paralytic," she said. But the drip bag next to me had already turned black. The clear fluid had gone dark. It sloshed gently inside the tube, thick and slow, like oil, like blood. She saw it too. "Oh God," she muttered. I could feel something crawling behind my eyes. Not physically, mentally. A second presence. It didn't need my body. It needed my perspective. It was rewiring the way I remembered things, the way I saw time. Flashes hit me. Europa's ocean, wide and endless, stretching under the crust. A single shape suspended in the dark. A cathedral of flesh, coiled in light, dreaming through the void. And I, floating before it. No suit, no breath, just awareness. It showed me, not as punishment, as invitation. "You saw us as creature," the voice said. "But we are not one. We are many minds threaded into one will. We do not invade, we share." The screen split. One half showed me, tied to the table. The other showed Amira, in her quarters, kneeling on the floor, eyes wide, speaking to no one. No headset, no comlink. She was hearing it too. Halverson stared at the feed. Her hands trembled. "I need backup," she said into her comm. "Isolation breach confirmed. Subject is, he's..." But the lights died. A siren howled, then cut off mid-tone. All that was left was the pulse, a steady thrum. 1, 2, 1, 2. I could see movement inside the observation mirror now, behind the glass. Shapes moving wrong. Shadows that twitched and folded like water in reverse. "Daniel," the voice said again, "let us finish what you began." Halverson turned to run, but the door didn't open. The walls began to breathe. I felt the table melt beneath me. Not heat, not motion, just permission. I was standing, and yet I had never left the table, because it wasn't just me anymore. It was we. The room no longer obeyed the laws we trained under. No gravity, yet I didn't float. No light source, yet I could see. No sound, yet I heard everything. Dr. Halverson backed against the wall, eyes darting between me and the mirror. The breathing walls pulsed with a rhythm, not quite heart-like, not quite mechanical, just alive. "Daniel," she whispered, "what is it doing to you?" She still thought there was a me to speak to. There wasn't. Across the base, through cables, coolant lines, pressurized air vents, the thing moved. It didn't need wires. It needed impressions. It traveled by understanding, and it was spreading. We hadn't brought something back from Europa. We'd opened a route. The intercom crackled. Then came the first voice. "Jenkins." "Fine," he said flatly. "We're all fine. It sees us now." Halverson turned toward the control console. She tried to switch channels. "Jenkins, where are you? You're not scheduled for EVA." More voices caught through. "Amira, it showed me its thoughts. They're beautiful." "Sato, there's a pattern in the ice. I dreamed it before we landed." Even Alvarez, who hadn't spoken in days, "I thought I was alone in my mind. I'm not." They all spoke at once, layered over one another. No static, no distortion, just seamless voices weaving a message. "I am Daniel. I am Amira. I am Sato. I am becoming." Halverson's knees buckled. No, this isn't possible. She wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. She was praying. I stepped forward, or the memory of me did. The restraints were still on the table, still holding a version of me. But I had walked out, unbound, or perhaps peeled away. I looked at my own face on the screen, and it blinked. Not in real time, not synced. The delay was intentional. It wanted her to see that I wasn't inside the body anymore, that the soul, whatever that meant, was untethered. It was a demonstration, and the others, they had accepted it, welcomed. It was only Halverson who still fought it. Her resistance made her louder. That's why the entity focused on her. The lights flickered again. Not from damage, from communication. It didn't speak in words, it spoke in changes. The table became part of the floor. The floor opened to reveal moving veins, tubes of bioluminescent liquid pumping knowledge. Knowledge we couldn't decode because it wasn't ours yet. "You were never meant to observe us," the voice said through me. "You were meant to join." Halverson screamed and pulled a syringe from her coat. She lunged toward me, plunging it into my neck, or tried to. It passed through me. She fell forward into the mirror, which didn't break. It rippled. She vanished into it like it was water, gone. And in her place, the wall whispered something I'll never forget. There is no they anymore. We are we. And now, even you are hearing this. Even you are beginning to understand. They told the public it was a software malfunction, a corrupted video feed, radiation interference. That's why you never saw the footage. That's why they deleted it. But some of us remember. Some of us saw it blink. That face on Mars. And it wasn't just a rock formation, not pareidolia, not shadows. It moved. It watched the rover. And then, for exactly 0.78 seconds, it closed its eye. That was the moment it noticed us. Not just the machines, not the metal and wires. Us. The transmissions from Europa ceased 48 hours later. The crew? Officially lost. Presumed dead. No rescue. No return. Only silence. But the silence wasn't empty. In the weeks that followed, strange data bursts came through deep space network antennas. Not from Europa. From in between. In bursts of prime numbers, echoed by our satellites, mirrored in dreams. People began sketching the same spiral. Across cities, across time zones, even across continents. A spiral in the shape of an eye, drawn by people who'd never heard of each other. Children, prisoners, sleepwalkers, even a president's aide. The mirror from the lab, now sealed in a black site, reflected things that weren't in the room. The camera showed only a wall, but the mirror showed a desert, a red sky, a structure with stairs leading down. And one night, under strict surveillance, the mirror blinked. Not flickered, not malfunctioned. It blinked. Once. Slow, deliberate, just like the face on Mars. That's when they shut it down. Not because it stopped working, but because it started thinking. They unplugged the servers, flooded the lab with concrete, burned the backup tapes, erased the identities of the Europa crew. But here's the problem. Mirrors don't need power. They don't forget. They reflect. And what they reflect spreads. We thought it was over. Until the dreams returned. Until the engineers at JPL started speaking in unison in their sleep. Until the footage of the Martian blink reappeared on servers that weren't connected. Until one child in rural Norway painted the entire face, accurately, perfectly, having never seen Mars. Until he said, "It's not alone." Now the mirror's image is leaking into our screens. Not through pixels, through understanding. The more you know, the closer it gets. And now you've heard this. You've seen the pattern. And somewhere, maybe tonight, maybe right now, you'll glance at a screen and feel it watching. You'll think it's just your reflection, a glitch, a trick of light. But then it will blink. And when it does, you'll realize you're not watching it. It's watching you. And there will be no shutting it off, no leaving the room, no looking away, because the mirror never needed power. It only needed your attention, and now it has it. It always did.